Head of the Kurdish Working Group for Human Rights in South Africa, Mahmoud Patel. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Erem. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So what is the purpose of the campaign that you started from South Africa? What is the importance of the campaign? And could you please give us some information about the letter that been sent to UN General Secretary as well?
Okay. The purpose of the campaign is firstly, the time has come for the freedom of Abdullah Ocalan towards a just peace in Turkey. It was a joint effort with the Congress of Trade Unions in South Africa, COSATU, the largest trade union in South Africa, ourselves as the Kurdish Human Rights Action Group in South Africa. Our key objective is to promote a just peace in Turkey and the region, because President Erdogan's regime has in the last few years pursued an internal and external policy of expansion and aggression. And for us, the key individual who can bring peace to Turkey is Abdullah Ocalan. Therefore, it is absolutely essential that his freedom as the legitimate representative of the Kurdish people is essential in paving the way for peace in Turkey and the region. We know from our own experience in South Africa that the release of a legitimate and credible leadership is inevitable and necessary precondition for any peace process.
The South African prosecuted people through ANC and PAC, and the Kurdish people through PKK embarked on the armed struggle for liberation. What is the similarities between Mandela and Öcalan?
Okay, for us, what is key and what is important is when the armed struggle was declared in South Africa, like in Turkey with the PKK, it didn't happen at the very beginning of the struggle. It after repeated oppression by the powers who were oppressing in South Africa, the apartheid government, in Turkey, the Turkish state. Then, after many decades, the armed struggle was declared in South Africa. The ANC, its military wing was MK, Umkhonto with Sizwe, and the PAC was POCO and APLA. And it was for the legitimate aspirations and self-determination as entrenched in international law for the right for people to self-determination. Very similar to the PKK that embarked on an armed struggle for the liberation of the peoples. Nelson Mandela had undergone underground training to lead the armed struggle after Sharpeville in 1960 when the apartheid government killed innocent people in Sharpeville. He was also betrayed by the American Secret Services, who informed the apartheid state where he was, and that led to his arrest. While Abdullah Ocalan was betrayed by the Secret Services as well of the United States, Britain, and Israel, and then handed over to MIT, or Turkish intelligence, in Kenya when he was en route to South Africa. Remember, in 1999, President Mandela's cabinet and our previous chairperson of the Kurdish Human Rights Action Group, Judge Essa Musa, they secured to give Abdullah Ocalan political asylum if he came to South Africa. So there is that connection between us, Abdullah Ocalan, the PKK, and the Kurdish people for their legitimate struggle for self-determination and their freedom.
KHRAG started that campaign with COSATU with a letter. You are asking for the same rules to be applied to Öcalan with Mandela. What are these rules? What are you exactly asking for in that letter?
What we want, even before Abdullah Ocalan must be released, as he is there currently. Remember, he occupies a prison cell. For many years, he was the only and sole inmate on the Imrali Island prison with 4,000 soldiers. The CPT released a report recently, and in that report, it also identified that his prison conditions are horrible, and they are in the extreme where a political prisoner cannot be allowed to be in those conditions. The Mandela rules that were adopted by the United Nations have a long history as to how it was finally adopted in its present form. But essentially, it is to ensure that political prisoners are not unduly discriminated. They have a right to visitation. They have a right for normal engagement with others. For example, if they want to read something, access to literature, books, whatever. We know Abdullah Ocalan has been denied most of those things for a number of years in his over 2-decade incarceration. So the CPT, by speaking to the UN Mandela rules. Remember, it's called the Mandela rules because it was primarily when the international campaign for the Free Mandela started to gain momentum, and Nelson Mandela's incarceration on Robben Island went onto the world stage with international mobilization, with campaigns by comrades and solidarity partners in the United States, Europe, and the rest of the world. So similarly, we want to see those rules of which clearly state how political prisoners must be treated. Besides, we know for many years he was even denied access by his legal representatives, which is a gross violation for a political prisoner in terms of the UN Mandela rules, as well as the cutoff from family for a number of years. Those are rights that must be upheld for the political prisoners. And the CPT has very clearly put that. Therefore, you will see in our letter campaign that we've invited others to join in this international campaign. We have clearly stated the violations that have taken place there and what was the reference made to it with regards to Imrali Island F-type prison security that Abdullah Ocalan has been, together with the inhumane prison conditions that contravene relevant international human rights and standards, including Turkey's law.
You also have called for the UN countries about the campaign. What they can do realistically for this campaign? Very short, very briefly.
Look, the United Nations, firstly, we must understand, was established to maintain peace and security, to develop friendly relations amongst nations. Turkey was one of the founder members of the United Nations. It is the only international non-state body globally that has reached through all governments as well as to all areas where there is conflict in the globe and on different continents. In particular, here we're focusing on the issue of Abdullah Ocalan. We believe that disregard for the fundamental human rights as defined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and related international treaties is a major source of ongoing armed conflicts, and the involvement of the UN with the member states. And we have got good news with President Biden's inauguration. He has signed an executive order where he has strengthened the United States membership of the UN. So the lobbying in the United Nations through the Secretary General and the pressure of the solidarity partners to the UN Secretary General must make and bring the issue squarely on the table for the United Nations so that they then may put pressure on the domestic countries, on Turkey as well, through the mechanisms of the United Nations, through dialogue, diplomacy, to get a political resolution. The sooner, the better.
Head of Kurdish Working Group for Human Rights in South Africa, Mahmoud Patel. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your comments today.
Thank you very much, Erem, and thank you to all your viewers and listeners as well.
Thank you.